Oh, dang it, I forget it ends that quickly. Dang it. That curse you! You're on mute, by the way.
Look at that. There we go. Hello. Hello.
Grandpa John's come back, everyone. Look at me go. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to another Darachat. My name is Daramouthe, or Dara for short. Obviously, when you hear a lot of people say Daramouthe, and you're like, did you go to first grade yet? Because it sounds like you're mispronouncing things, even when I say it. But when you have words like vermouth, right, and it's like, but that's the word, right? That's the word you say and stuff. I don't know anymore. To be honest, it's one of those tired things where you're like, when I do my pay it forward stream, right? You know, you know how you see the words, the word itself, and then the pronunciation of the word, right? You know,
Yeah.
like the slope, whatever. I kind of have to do that during the times like dare, moose, or just say dare for short. Otherwise, people are just like, dare, maus.
I'm pretty sure I screwed it up at the first time I said it too. So
It's fine. It's basically just take the wording of what vermouth has, and then
well,
you just
that's why I started, for when I started doing pizza art more often and started having more of an online presence.
yeah.
I was doing digital art and stuff. I started going by my first and middle name because my last name can be hard to pronounce, and it was just easier. And I think it made sense, like marketing wise, just to have a simpler name. So
Yeah.
that's why I did that. So
Yeah. Is it
that's
like
why
a
I go by Eric John.
is it like a Polish name? Is that why it's so difficult?
Polish? No, it's Italian. I'm not doing sausage art.
my
No, it's
name is
Italian.
my name is a Gigoloni. It's like, what the hell's last name is that? No, that's understandable though, because there are those names out there. There are the funny ones, and then there are the ones like, I don't want to say it, but it looks like something I shouldn't say, and then you just like, it's fine. I
Yeah,
understand.
luckily I don't have one of those names. That would have been tough growing up, but
Hey,
yeah,
Recatoni, how you doing?
yeah. There was actually a kid who he went to school with my brother. My brother's a couple years older than me, so
Right.
I knew the kid,
Mm.
but his name was Richard Small,
Mm.
and he went by Dick.
Hmm.
I mean, why you would like do that to your kid? I don't know, but that's a. And then there was another there was a girl I think who went to school like in the town where I live, and
Yeah.
some of my friends knew her, but her name was Jennifer Talia, and everyone called her Jenna. I'm not even making this up. These are real people. Probably shouldn't be saying their names on, on the internet, but
Too
they're
late
funny
now.
names. Yeah, they're funny names. At
That's
least for her.
that.
She probably got married and changed her name, but
That's good.
such is life.
Yeah, it's like finding out. Oh, and a Mr. Killer, a Mr. Killer. I'm sorry, Richard Killer, a Richard Killer. It's one of those things where you just like you kids like that's like the genetic lottery right there, where you just have that thing where it's like I can't throw a basketball. Well, guess you have to try something else there, Timmy. Um,
I feel like I'm so much taller than you. I feel like I should. I feel like I
well,
should.
Well, it's the way my camera is, but then again, it's like my camera's on top of my camera's on top of my screen and not like
I know.
right directly in front of me.
No,
Otherwise,
this is totally like your signature look.
well, the
You
hat and
can't
glasses are, yeah, but not the
change
small.
it. This is like this is your signature online appearance is like head bottom of the screen, a bunch of negative space up here with post-it notes. That's
What are you
you. That's your
What are
thing.
you talking about? I'm here all the time. I could do this. And our next guest is that'd be like, why does he look like a midget? Hey, we say little people now. Cough it up, calm down. But yeah, it is what it is. Because again, like how my setup is, like I have my light thing here, and then my camera here, but my mic is below. So it's sort of like, remember when the Wii came out and it had that little sensor bar that you had to put, below the TV or above
I
the TV.
do remember. Yeah, that seems
So
like forever ago now.
yeah,
The
that's when you know you're old. Is
the
like,
Wii is ancient.
When you remember that there were so many Wii jokes, it's like, come on, come on.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when that came out, it was like it was a huge deal, and
Yeah,
it didn't, it didn't really catch on, I think, the way people thought it would. But like some of the games were pretty popular, like the Wii bowling
yeah,
and stuff. Like some of the into tennis, I think some of them were
yeah.
pretty popular. But for like it was for the other games, it really didn't do much. I think it
Mm,
kind of died.
mm,
But it was sort of a precursor, I guess, to like some of
mm.
the virtual reality type stuff that's going on. So
Right.
that's
I
pretty
mean,
cool.
yeah, the,
I've learned a lot about gaming in the last last few months just being on Rumble.
yeah.
And so I've actually learned a lot about. I've been so out of that realm
Mm,
for 25 years. So I don't know anything, and I've been learning a lot actually. So it's pretty
yeah.
cool.
Yeah, old man, we're gonna play a little Smash Bros. Like, what? What is
What
Smash?
is Smash Bros? I have no
Is it?
idea.
Is that a
I
new?
heard of it, but I really don't even know what that is. The last game I ever played consistently, like a
Uh,
lot, I was probably a sophomore in high school, so we're talking like
mm.
2000, and it was Ocarina of Time for 64, the Zelda game,
Wow.
and I played that a ton, like a ton. I played that until I had a 64 when I was in high school and played
Yeah.
it a lot. But after that, I played a little bit in college.
Mm,
Again, the 64 in the PlayStation
mm.
2. I think it was still PlayStation 2
Yeah.
at that point. Maybe the 3 had come out, but those were still the two dominant platforms. I think Xbox had just probably come out.
Mm.
Um, and I played a little bit of that in college, but not much. And then after that, I was, actually, I remember getting my old Nintendo, like the original Nintendo. I remember getting
Ooh.
that from my grandmother's house.
Wow. Jeez.
And I played that for quite a few years after, and I kind of
Mm.
just got into like all those old games. And then, but then, marriage and kids and all that stuff. We actually just got for the kids, we just got them a Switch.
Ooh.
Nintendo Switch, because
Yeah.
they love playing Mario Kart when we take them to the arcade.
Mm.
So now they can play against each other at home and stuff, and
Mm.
it's been really fun, like watching them
Yeah.
play Mario Kart and stuff. So I've been playing a little bit with them, but that's
Mm.
that's it. That's the extent of it.
So does your arcade now use like those card things like they do?
Yeah, you swipe the card. Yeah, no
Yeah.
quarters. There was a place when I was a kid. So how old are you?
Well, you said you were what? You were a sophomore in 2000?
Like 2000. Yeah, I was born in
Yeah.
'84. I'm 40. I'm gonna be 42.
Oh, well, then you're older than me. Never mind then.
All right.
Because I was like,
So when I was a kid, so we're
uh,
talking like 1990,
mm,
1991, like six,
yeah.
7 years old through like 10 years. There was a place where I live. It was an arcade. It was called the Dream Machine. And everyone, this was like, it's a legendary place around here. Like if you're my age and you grew up where I grew up, like
Mm,
everybody knows of a certain age knows the Dream Machine, and it was
mm,
just a 80s arcade. And it was, it took tokens actually. It wasn't even quarters.
yeah.
You would put like a $5 bill
Mm,
at the time and get tokens, and all the games were like a quarter
oh
basically to
yeah.
play.
Oh yeah.
And we would play for what felt like hours. It was
Mm,
probably like an hour, but it felt like we were there all all night.
yeah.
And that was like back in the day of like they'd have like indoor malls were like still a big thing, and you'd
Mm,
have like the movie theater and like a Papagino's,
yep.
and which is like a pizza place, and the Orange Julius, and then you'd have like the arcade,
Mm,
and it was just everything was like right there, and it was so much fun. Like we had so much fun playing those old arcade games. And then what kind of killed it, I think, was when Sega came out. Sorry, we're doing a lot of gaming talk. I hope that's all right.
that's what it's
But
for.
when Sega came out with their home console system, it
Yeah.
was the
Yeah.
first. That was like the first 16-bit system,
Mm,
which was it was basically like having arcade quality games in your house for the first time, because
yeah.
the up until then it was all 8-bit, and
Yeah.
the arcade games were 16-bit. That's why they were always like a lot smoother
Mm,
action, and the graphics were a little better. But once the Sega Genesis came along, I think that really started the decline
mm,
of arcades being popular.
yeah.
And now there's been like a resurgence of them, because there's
Yeah.
now they have these crazy arcade games and stuff.
Yeah.
And They've kind of made it like it's weird. It's like they're like more geared towards adults. Um, than kids. But
Yeah.
yeah, I remember going there and the Dream Machine. That was the best. There was some good times as a kid.
Yeah, especially when you can have an arcade place that was a combo with a food place, right? Because if you had a food place with it too,
Yeah.
you'd be there for hours.
Yeah, or even
Um,
places like Chuck E. Cheese. Like Chuck E.
oh
When I was a kid, Chuck E. Cheese is still around, but like when I was a kid, like if when you got to go out to Chuck E. Cheese, that was like,
yeah,
oh man, like when the parents were like, "Hey, we're gonna go to Chuck E. Cheese tonight," that was like it was like your birthday. You thought it was your
yeah,
birthday. Like it was like and, you know, I remember like the old animatronic mouse singing the
mhm.
song. It was
Chuck E.
wild.
Cheese,
It
yeah.
was. There's a really funny video that you can find it online, but John Oliver
Mhm.
does a whole breakdown of like the history of Chuck E. Cheese, and
Mhm.
it's so fascinating.
Yeah,
And it's long. It's like more than half an hour long. It's like 40 minutes long, but it's so crazy. The whole story of Chuck E. Cheese is so crazy.
right.
And the animatronics are all like a part of it. It's wild. But that was another thing, like you know, arcade and pizza and video
Mhm.
games, like it was such a cool time, you
Yeah.
know. It was a really cool time.
Yeah, the thing is that Chuck E. Cheese took over for the Showbiz place or Palace, I think it was.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah. What was it? What was it called? I don't know if it was something like that. Yeah, something Palace. Yeah, they like bought him out, or it
yep,
was the other way around at first, and then it was I don't know. It's a crazy story,
yeah,
but worth
but
watching. Like I was transfixed watching that.
yeah, and then of course then you have there's been a lot of places, nowadays you can see like I've been to a place where a bowling place and an arcade place is kind of combined. So you do
Yeah.
and they have food there, so that's always a good time.
Yep.
But the funny thing that sort of came out of years down the road for Chuck E. Cheese was the whole Five Nights at Freddy's thing.
Oh right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
it was then because you have this sort of thing where you have Chuck E. Cheese being known for the fun place. Then you have a guy who just creates a game, just to try to make ends meet for his family,
Right.
and now it's getting a second movie.
It's crazy. It's crazy. That thing was so popular. What one of the things that was interesting was that now it's funny because it's kind of come full circle because arcades are more geared towards adults now than kids in a lot of ways. But when
Yeah,
Chuck E. Cheese first started, it was geared towards adults. It was like the mouse was like a wisecracking New Jersey comic
yeah,
with like a cigar and would tell like off-color crude jokes and stuff. And it was like it
mm,
was very much geared towards like adults.
yeah,
With like games and in a bar and stuff. Um, and it sort of took the same path as wrestling. Like wrestling started out, it was like very much for adults, and then all of a sudden it was like we're gonna market this towards 6 and 7 year olds and 10 year olds. And then it went back. It's like there's
yeah,
weird cycles that the market goes through with all this stuff.
yeah.
It's pretty wild. It's pretty wild.
Well, I mean, it's also the things like who's the one buying all the cards and tokens and stuff. It's the more
Right.
the adults, right? Nowadays, like the arcades that are making a comeback, like there's like a big Pac-Man thing, and then you have like
Yeah.
I saw a Halo game once there, like an arcade style. And
Yep.
then of course they still do the prize stuff, like you have to get a certain amount of points, or whatever. It's not tickets anymore; it's points.
Yeah, you get points. Yeah, see that the kids miss out on that. Like I remember folding up the
Yep.
tickets into these like little stacks and trying to jam them all in your sweatshirt pocket, you know, and they're all
Yep.
sticking out the sides. You didn't know how to carry them all, and
Hmm.
you know that was all part of the fun. Was like all of that, you know, that tactile stuff, and yeah, it's all digital now. But it is crazy. You mentioned that like the big Pac-Man thing. Like they have a the one that we go to. There's a big Space Invaders
Ooh.
game, and it's a giant screen,
Hmm.
and you're sitting there. I'm sitting there with my kids, and like it's way too close to the screen. I'm gonna have like
Yeah.
a seizure doing this thing. It's like you can't even see what you're doing. The lights are like flashing at you so
Yeah.
intensely.
Mhm.
And it's like I feel like I should be like 5 feet further back doing this. The kids, it's almost like too overwhelming for the kids. It's like they're like, we don't want to play anymore.
Yeah.
It's like
It's
too
too
much for them.
fast. Too fast. Too
But it's like a
fast.
giant. Again, it's like a yeah. Everything's giant. You
Mhm.
know.
Yeah.
So it's kind of it's interesting. It's interesting. I gaming. You know, I've been so fascinated by it. Like I said, just because I've made so many friends on Rumble who are in the gaming world,
Mhm.
and you know, I think I didn't really totally fully appreciate or understand just how big that industry is now,
Yeah.
and how massive it is, and it's
Mhm.
really it's bigger. It's bigger than like everything.
Yeah,
So it's pretty wild.
they're esports and all that stuff. Like,
Yeah, it's
I've
massive. Yeah, it's
love
massive. I
love
had thought about doing like a weekly classic gaming stream. I was thinking about doing that for a little while, especially now that we have the Switch here at the
Mm,
house. But I ultimately I was like, you know what? I was like, I want to focus on the Sunday night show, the Awesome Sauce show, and like really put as much time as I can in during the week
yeah.
into coming up with new stuff for the show, new videos, new little fun things, and like planning it out and just trying to put as much time into that as I can. So I'm probably not going to do that, but I had
Yeah.
thought about it because they make it seem so fun.
Yeah, no, that's understandable. Like, I mean, I used to do the game streaming before, but it really didn't hit on where I wanted to go,
Yeah,
or really didn't hit on what felt like the thing was to do. Right? You're always trying to search for that thing,
right,
and of course yours is with the pizza stuff, but mine is with the conversational basis, which is
right.
pretty
You've
much
had some
all.
awesome guests on, man. I always try to. I always, if I can't catch it live, I always try to catch some of them on after the fact. And you've had some really awesome guests. I mean, you had I think you had Nina Infinity on one week, and
Yeah, she
you know,
was
I
listening
know her
from.
from you know, a lot of those streams in the
Mm,
sort of geeks and gamers and
mm,
Friday Night Tights, like that whole universe.
mm.
So that's awesome, dude. Seems like you're doing really great.
Yeah, it's still the troubling of scheduling and stuff. That's always still
Yeah, of
the trouble.
course, of
But
course.
it's also name recognition, because that's where my problem is too. Is like I can go and try to get one or two more of these people, but then I can like, hey, would you like to come on, and just nothing, right?
Yeah,
Nothing.
I found it actually when I did it, the interview podcast thing, I was actually really surprised how willing certain people were to come on with me, given the fact that, like, you know, I didn't have an audience really at all.
Yeah.
And I was surprised. You know, a lot of people, some really cool people who've done some really cool stuff. You know, I just always assumed that, like, even there was one person who was like an actor, had
Mm.
been in some cool stuff, but I just assume like these people get asked to do, you know, interviews all the time, and they really don't. Like a lot of people don't really.
Yeah.
So it's you know, you just got to keep asking, just keep, you know, the worst thing that happens is they're gonna say no, you know,
Or not say anything at all,
or
which
not
is the
saying
other
it at
part.
all.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that only happened to me. I remember that only happened to me a couple of times, I think. So that was, you
Yeah.
know, it was more, but you're right. It was more like the scheduling and what time's good for you, what time's good for me. Okay. And then trying to keep track of it and then trying to do it every week. And,
Yep.
you know, it's tough. It's very tough to keep up. So yeah, I think
Yeah.
you're doing good, man.
Well, I use my phone calendar, and of course I use my
That helps.
handy dandy
Look at that.
calendar.
See, that's analog right there. That's the real
Yeah.
deal.
Yeah, I still write it, right once I get it down, because I know for right now my first week of February is full, but it's not the,
Right.
I mean, I don't, again, the point is I don't have to do it, but like you were saying, there are a lot of people that, you wouldn't know if they want to speak or not, but there's a lot of people out there who'd want to, whether they're a creator or not, right? This is not creator circle central. This is people just, like you and I or whatever, just coming at
Right.
the table and saying. And I think, and that's been another one thing too, is I've had to change from, because I used to use that interview tag, and I've had to try to transition away from that, because it isn't an interview. This
Yeah,
has
right.
never
I
been
saw
an interview.
that. Yeah.
This has never been an interview. I mean, asking questions, sure, but you can ask me questions, and we'll see like where that goes. But the thing of it is that it's when you make it an interview. From my perspective, when you make it an interview, it's this formal thing you see every time, celebrity or whatever. It's like,
Yep.
go read a bunch of cards. No, I take my cues from when I used to watch the Craig Ferguson show, right? The Craig
Oh
Ferguson
yeah,
show.
sure.
Yeah, he would, when he would have those cards, right? But
Right.
whatever the person was on for, whether it be a book, movie, whatever, they'd more like never get to it, because they're just going all over the place. And I'd rather have that kind of stay than anything else, because once you make it an interview, there's a formality you have to do, there's a strictness you have to be, and all that stuff.
Right.
But when you're just saying it's just a conversation and all this stuff, people can be a bit apprehensive, sure.
Right. Well, it's sort of the difference between like what Joe Rogan does, which is much more of a conversation. You know, and sometimes it seems like it depends on who his guest is.
Mm.
You know, some of them tend to be more like an interview, and some are more like a conversation. But then there's like, you know, like yeah, like you said, like people like that, or like Larry King, back in the day, you know, like those were straight up interviews where it's just one person asking questions,
Yeah.
and yeah, I mean the yeah, I mean if this were an interview, we wouldn't have a back and forth about gaming probably, you know. It's just that's why. So right, so but that's why, but that's what makes it like with the conversation style, you know, you don't really know what's coming, and it kind of just goes where it goes, and it's probably, it's certainly more fun, you know.
Right. But it also brings in that unpredictability, which I think a lot of people are. I mean, I get people who do topic centered stuff, like you see them all the time. And they may go off on a tangent or two, but like for me, I am on the heavy on the unpredictable matter. Like, you can have a starting point, but then
Right.
it's sort of like you're on that dirt road, right, with your ATV, and you're not sure. There's no trail for you to tread. You have to do that and go
Right.
from there. And that's been the most enjoyable factor. Is there have been a lot of people that have, well, not a lot, but there have been some people who've been like, well, I don't see myself as interesting. I don't know. Prove it. Come on and prove that you are not as interesting you say. And the thing of it is they come on and they have
That's
a nice
funny.
time. Yeah, they have a
That's a funny concept. Like, I'm gonna show you that I'm boring. Well, just wait and see. I'm gonna
what?
sit there and not say a word.
Well, I'm not gonna, I have never said that directly, but it feels like when they say that, like, I don't know if I'm interesting, whatever. Look, you you are saying something, you are saying in something in which you haven't proven to yourself that you can't. The big point of this is, like, you come on the show and it's all dependent on me, right? It's all dependent on me if I can keep it going or not. That's the real challenge for me, and I've run into a few of those people. But the point of the
Oh
matter
yeah,
is, yeah,
right.
but the point of the matter is that people have to understand is that you have to at least be willing to allow yourself the opportunity of seeing that it's not impossible to go beyond what you believe to be true. And it turns out it's not always the case. I mean, there's some people, again, it's like trying to get water out of a stone. But the issue of it is, though, is that when someone says it to me, it's like, I just want to say, look, prove to me that you believe you're not that interesting. Because people don't understand is that your walk of life, the points you see and whatever, are not going to be as much as the other person, because you don't know. And when you don't know, that can be the joy of the fun of it, because when you don't know things, you either fear it or want to explore it. Which do you want to do?
That's a great point. Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, that's interesting. I wonder. I feel like for me, like it's probably a little bit of both. I'm sure there's things I don't know where I'm like, I don't think I really want to know.
Yeah.
I don't think, and then other things where I get really transfixed. A lot of times, like things that are very like small and simple,
Mm-hmm.
that I don't understand, or like oftentimes like things that people will do that doesn't make sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
I'll get really transfixed on that, and like to the point where it can be it can get really annoying. Like I'll be talking to somebody at work or a friend or whatever, and I'll just be like going over and over a certain situation, and I'll be like, "What? Like, that doesn't even make sense what that person did? Like, why did they do that? Like, it isn't like that doesn't even make sense." And like the fact that I can't make sense of it really bothers me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like but like little, like it's just like little things. It's sort of like the kind of things that would perplex Larry David. You know, like those like it's like those little things that things people do in little situations that can be so vexing. And but then like big things, I sometimes just tend to like throw my hands up, and I'm just like, oh, I don't know, whatever. But the little things, I feel like I feel like if I could figure them out, I could solve like all the world's problems or something. Like
Yeah.
I can split the atom if I can figure out like
You
why
don't want to do
somebody
that.
would why
I
someone
wouldn't.
would.
I
Well, no,
wouldn't. Yeah, I wouldn't trust you with splitting the atom. I'd be very concerned. Like, what's Pizza John doing? He's splitting the atom. Someone take that blade away from him right now.
it's an
Put
very
it down.
explosive pizza.
Very, very explosive pizza. No, it's one of those. It's one of those things where the surprising factor is you think that a lot of people would be able to know how to have a conversation, at least on a very basic level, right? There's a very ground floor kindergarten basic level. But the surprising part is many people, either they don't feel it or they don't show it. And it shows that time and time again, no matter what the person is, right? I mean, yeah, you could say Nina Infinity is a big person, sure, but that's not why I do this. Nina Infinity was someone I was trying to get on for so long, so long because I'd been able to reach across and say okay, and then it took months and months and months.
Yeah,
That
right.
that was a culmination of months and months and months and months.
Well, that's
Um,
just it. Well, you kept at it, and there's a lot of things like that where
mm,
sometimes you try something and you go for something and it doesn't work out right away,
mm,
and you're not even thinking in the back of your head like, well, if I keep at this, maybe I'll make this work. A lot of times, and a lot of people will just say, oh, well, that didn't work. I'm going to move on.
mm,
Not realizing that, well, sometimes it takes a little persistence. And the funny thing about the conversation thing, I mean, that's a uh, conversation used to be a real art. I think people
yeah.
used to, and I can kind of remember like when I was a kid,
Mm,
my grandparents are of that sort of greatest generation, who grew up, they grew up with radio,
oh
right?
yeah.
Which is a very conversational medium,
Mm,
and like people, like families sometimes would like sit around the radio, kind of like they would
yeah.
sit around the TV, but it's a
Mm,
very conversational medium. You're not really zombified by it.
yeah.
And it spurs conversation. So and for entertainment purposes, I mean, when all you have is a radio, what you're going to do when you're getting together with your friends, you're the conversation becomes part of the entertainment, and everybody is trying to sort of outdo each other and come up with a
Mm,
funny quip, or
mm,
and personalities really develop. And I can remember like card games at my grandparents' house with all these guys and their wives and stuff of that
mm,
generation sitting around the dining room table, and just the loud talking and the personalities, and it was almost like music, like the way the
yeah.
conversation would bounce and bounce, and this guy would get mad and yell, and
Mm,
this guy would, and then this would someone would say this, they'd all be laughing, and it was a whole like symbiosis of
yeah.
words and everything. And that, I mean, that's gone. I mean, that really just doesn't happen anymore. And I think, and a lot of that is technology.
Yeah.
And I
Part of
think
it.
that,
Yeah.
my people my age, it's a weird, where people like so I'm 42. So
Mm,
anybody between the age, I would say, of like 40, maybe
mm,
39, 40, and
mm,
like 45, 46 is like a weird sweet spot there where like we grew up without the internet and
mm,
cell phones, right?
yeah.
But we were also young enough when the internet came around to
Mm,
be proficient at it and have that be a part of our life too. So
yeah.
like when I like the internet didn't really come around and become sort of ubiquitous and become commonplace in people's homes until
Yeah.
I was probably like 12. So I
Yeah.
was probably like sixth grade.
Mm,
And that's when like America Online and like the instant messenger and chat rooms and all that stuff became
yeah.
kind of popular, and it was huge. Like I remember very vividly being blown away that I could talk to somebody in California like
Mm,
instantaneously on the computer.
mm,
Like, just the fact that I could do that was
yep.
mind-blowing, because up until then, the only way you could talk to somebody from California is if you knew somebody and you had their phone number, you could make a collect call,
Yeah.
where you had to pay to talk
Mm,
to them. Or the other thing people would do is they had ham radios,
yeah.
like literally like radio, and you try to see how far you could find somebody, and so it was really mind-blowing, this technology.
Mm,
But I got to experience 12 years without that, and then another, 12 years of my sort of younger years with it.
mm,
So I've kind of got one foot in both worlds and both experiences.
yeah.
But people who were young, like a decent amount younger than me, probably like your generation, a little younger, I'm assuming you grew up, the internet was probably always around, for the
No,
most
it
part.
was it was. I mean, dial up was certainly the thing at the time.
Yeah,
And that was a fun
when you were
time and
when you were
fun.
a kid, yeah.
Yeah, that was certainly a
So
fun time with dial up.
yeah, and now my kids are growing up with the technology we have today, and like streaming, and like there was no streaming when I was.
Mm,
I mean, YouTube didn't come out until like what, like
five,
2003, 2005.
2005. Yep.
Yeah, so I mean, I was already almost out of college by the time YouTube even came around.
Yeah.
So it's just mind blowing. The technology really blows my mind, but it has, in a weird way, I think that on the one hand, up to this point, I think it's really hurt conversation and the ability to talk and communicate. But now almost feel like, in a weird way, the
Mm,
technology has gotten so good
mm,
where people are starting to almost have more face-to-face conversation using the technology now.
Mhm.
Whereas, up until recently, if you wanted to communicate using the technology, it was very rudimentary. It was a lot of text messaging. It was a lot
Mhm.
of emailing.
Mhm.
It was all very written.
Yeah.
And now the technology is getting so good with video and Zoom and things like Rumble Studio and stuff
Yeah.
like that. It's weird. It's almost seems like maybe kids growing up today, it's like maybe they won't stumble as much with the conversation because they're actually using the technology to do what people did
Yeah.
60, 70 years ago. So it's just weird how technology comes and goes and there's
Mhm.
cycles and things change, and
Yeah.
it's really fascinating. And I think that it's hard for me to keep up with. I always say I'm kind of an analog guy in a
Yeah.
digital world.
Mhm.
But again, I grew up with it enough where I can figure shit out. Like just figuring out the streaming shit, dude. Like it was a huge barrier for me getting into it. Like I was really like hesitant to get into it because I knew I was gonna have to do a ton of work just to figure out how
Yeah.
to use Streamlabs. Okay, how do I, using the cameras and all that. It sounds like stupid, but it was hard. It's hard for me. And I've learned a lot, and now like I say to anyone, especially people who are my age, or even people who are just scared of the tech side of it. Once you learn it, it's really not that bad. And it's the
Yeah.
same with crypto. There's a lot of people are scared to get into crypto and NFTs and things like that because the technology it's so daunting when you don't know it. But once you kind of get into it and you start using it, it becomes very second nature. And so
It's convoluted in its explanation, right?
yeah.
Because crypto relies on blockchain, which is the basic form of what it is. But there's all so many things you have to do all this other stuff. So the explanation for it
Yeah.
can be somewhat simple, but to use the tools is a little difficult because
It's
it's
not super user friendly yet, which is a sign that it's very early. But
yeah,
I'm trying to keep up with what people are saying. Um, but I'm blown away by how fast technology becomes user friendly. Like even just in the time I've been streaming, which I started in April,
mm,
stuff has already become super like way more user friendly than even when I started. And the same
yeah,
is true with crypto. Like just in the few years I was doing NFTs and stuff like that, it's the technology has moved and advanced so quickly, and it's becoming so much more user friendly. And so I wouldn't be surprised if in the next couple of years, crypto I think will become as easy as using Apple Pay or something like that,
it
or
it has
Amazon.
to. It has
Yeah,
to.
it will.
Otherwise,
Well,
it's
it will. It's just it just takes time. It just takes
yeah,
time, but it will
yeah.
happen
Yeah,
for
because
sure.
otherwise it'll be a technology that will be stuck in its own dark ages where it doesn't know. People
Right.
don't know how to use it. People don't know how to use it. People see it as sort of like the hieroglyphs at ancient Egypt, and they're like, "Well,
Yeah.
okay,
Right.
how's that?" But at the end of the day, though, it's you can't you kind of have to at least be willing to. Because I mean, I don't know much about it either, but I
Well,
have like
it's almost like it's funny because the funny thing happened. Somebody asked me earlier today, was asking me about NFTs and wanting to kind of thinking about doing it and getting involved in it.
mhm,
And I realized I was trying to explain it via like DM.
mhm,
I was trying, and I realized this is really hard to explain in written form. And I was like, that's a good indication that it's not quite there yet with the
yep,
user friendliness. That if I have to like show somebody step by step online, like using a screen grab or something, screen share or something like that. And so if I have to do it that way, then it's not quite there yet, but
no.
it's getting there. It's
Yeah.
getting there. And I was like trying to write it out, and I was like, I can't really describe this that well. So I was like, I'll try and see how it goes, but I'm assuming I'm gonna have to show this person. I think
Yeah.
how it's gonna work with a screen share.
Yeah,
So
definitely. But but for yours, I mean, I think it's you sell the or whatever it is after the pizza is done. You make a NFT of your pizza.
yeah, yeah. So when I first started doing NFTs, it was really revolutionary for me for my art because I
Mm,
could up until then. if I was gonna make a pizza, and make artwork, even if it was just for, like, promotional purposes or advertising or whatever,
Mhm.
and for social media content, I had to be pretty mindful about how much time I was putting into it, how
Mhm.
much it was costing me time-wise and
Yep.
materials-wise, but when I could mint them as a digital collectible and sell them that way,
Mhm.
it was like it opened up a lot of possibilities artistically for me. So I started doing like giant works of pizza art that were like not even ever going to be cooked. There were like 6 or 8 pans of pizza large. Um, and I was able to sell them as these sort of high-end digital collectibles.
Nice.
But what I've been doing recently with the live stream and like I'm hearing a lot of noise.
But
Did you hear that?
but
Might be on your end.
well, I do have a heater running, so
Oh,
there's
it could be that.
yeah.
So what I've been doing is, and the thing with NFTs is just so funny too, because I remember I was on Pudge's show when I
Mhm.
first started streaming, not long after I first started streaming, and he wanted to talk to me about NFTs. And I was talking about how revolutionary it was and how, you're minting your artwork for creators, you're minting your digital content on the blockchain, et cetera, et cetera. And then this whole thing blew up in the NFT world where it basically became obvious to everybody that like you weren't exactly minting your digital content on the
Mhm.
blockchain. What
Right.
you were doing was minting a token on the blockchain, sort of like a meme coin or anything like that. You're minting a
Yeah.
token and then you're attaching an image or a video or something to it, but you're not attaching it to it on the blockchain. You're linking an image that's being stored on a server somewhere, sort of in
Mhm.
the way any file would be stored on your computer, and you're
Right.
linking it sort of to this token. And so it kind of I don't know, it aggravated me. It made me feel like, well, this isn't exactly what I thought it was. And it
Right.
also wasn't exactly what a lot of the NFT platforms were saying it was. Like a
Right.
lot of these NFT platforms were saying, mint your digital content on the blockchain, imprint your artwork forever on the blockchain. That's not what's happening. So what
Right.
I've been doing with the show is, for me, it's been more or less of like, this is like these are like digital collectibles that you're gonna make a lot of money on, and it's
Mhm.
more like this is a fun way that's not too expensive
Mhm.
to support the show
Mhm.
and to have a fun little digital collectible. Like it's no big deal.
Yeah.
And so I've been selling them for anywhere between like $30 and $50 worth of Ethereum.
Mhm.
Um, Whereas like my older works, some of my more premier pieces were selling for,
Mhm.
some of them sold in like over $1,000, some of them.
Yeah.
This is more like, let's make them really affordable. I'm gonna do a lot of them, so I'm doing one for each show that I do, obviously.
Mhm.
So there'll be a lot of them, but I'll keep them really pretty inexpensive. And it's like, instead of sending a $50 Rumble rant, if you have crypto, hey, you can buy the $50 NFT,
Mhm.
and then you get yourself a fun digital collectible that's sort of linked to the show. So
Yeah.
like if I end up doing my show for the next say 5 or 10 years or even longer,
Mhm.
there'll be quite a body of stuff there, and you can go all the way back to show number one, show number two, and
Mhm.
and that the artwork I made during that show is right there, and you can collect it using crypto. So my idea with it is I want it to be fun.
Mhm.
I want it to make it easy and accessible for people who want to sort of ape into it,
Right.
and make it a fun way for people to support the show. So that's kind of what it is.
I like when you said ape into it when that whole
Well,
monkey NFT thing happened.
well, that's where that came from. That's where that came from. Yeah, there were so many monkey NFT knockoffs of the Bored Apes. That was the Bored Apes Yacht Club was the big collection, and I remember I could have had a bunch of those for like the mint price, like the cheap price, and I didn't. I had just gotten and I didn't know what the hell I was doing,
Right.
but there was a bunch of like knockoff versions of that came after that. It was monkeys everywhere. So it's monkeys and penguins and lions and tigers, and it was
Oh my.
crazy. Yeah. But it's like anything else, and
Mm.
like crypto in a lot of ways, especially the early days of crypto.
Yeah.
They were very overvalued, and a lot of it was sort of fake hype that was manufactured.
Mhm.
And so the demand was sort of manufactured, and it really wasn't it wasn't really there the way that it seemed like it was there. And then when it
Mhm.
went away, all that sort of fake hype and demand went away, it
Mm.
really bottomed out,
Yeah.
and
A
a
lot
lot
of
of people
people
got stuck.
a lot of people got
Um,
lost a lot of money. That's right.
yeah, they
But
really did. It's
I
sad,
think
but yeah.
I think that's sort of the issue with crypto itself is that it's could also be seen like coming Bitcoin, right? Like Bitcoin's at like 100,000, and people can see it as like an easy or not an easy, but like a big moneymaker, whatever. The issue that it is crypto is sort of it's not very it's not far from what regular fiat is backed of, and it's really not backed by very much of anything. It's more of
Mhm.
um, because any form of well, I don't know if I want to say fiat or things we've have valued has been sort of this thing where it's just backed by the belief it has value, right?
Right,
You bartering used to be like the big thing around town where you barter for one thing for another. Uh,
right.
thank you, Schoolhouse of Rock. But
Yeah. Well, that's really interesting too. Like the whole history of money is really fascinating. I studied Austrian economics very extensively at one point
ooh,
in my life.
that's good.
I took a ton of courses.
Mm,
Earned a lot of certificates through the Mises Institute, which teaches Austrian economics, because I wanted to be a better businessman and I wanted to learn more about these sorts of things. And yeah, the history of money and stuff is really interesting. How like whatever the most desirable item in a community was back in the sort of hunter-gatherer times or even
yeah.
colonial times or whatever,
Mm,
let's say it was milk,
mm,
that would become the money because whatever thing people want or need the most becomes the easiest thing to trade.
yeah.
So that sort of almost becomes the money, whether
Yeah.
it could be beans, it could be anything, something that's in abundance and easy to change hands. Goats or cows aren't going to be good money, right? Because they're big and there's not a lot of them.
Mm,
But with I think was interesting about Bitcoin and Ethereum and a lot of the stuff that came along, especially in the early days,
yeah.
compared to fiat. And
Yeah.
I think this was the big response to fiat is that with Bitcoin, that the cool thing about it, and I remember when it first came around,
Mm,
because Ron Paul, I was really into Ron Paul at the time. It's like 2008, 2009,
mm,
and people were starting to talk about Bitcoin, and it was like $4, for each Bitcoin or something. I didn't buy any, obviously,
mm,
but it was the fact that there was you could mine them like you would mine gold, but as more and more were created, it would get harder and harder to create new ones. And so there was sort of this built-in supply control, which you
mm,
don't have with fiat. And the
mm,
same with like Ethereum and a lot of other coins, they have sort of a set supply,
mm,
which means that as they become more desirable, they can become more valuable. Whereas
mm.
with fiat, when you can just create more and more and more of it, I mean, the chances you're going to devalue it is it's almost unavoidable.
Yeah.
So I think that's what's kind of interesting to me about crypto. And you're right. It is, it's not like there's a tangible use for Bitcoin. There isn't. It's just, it's something people want, and if
Yeah.
people and if people stop wanting it,
Yeah.
then the value will go down,
Yeah.
for sure.
It,
Which is why people historically like things like gold and silver and the sort of those,
mm,
those tangible objects, because you if the shit hits the fan, you can use silver
yeah.
for stuff in the real world.
Well, that and much other things like you're talking about, like animals or food products that are created. But the thing of it is though is that crypto is pretty useless when the power goes out.
Yes,
Crypt,
it is.
crypto is very
Yep.
reliant on there being electricity for it to continue. Now, right? You could say, well, Bitcoin and all this stuff, but the issue of it is once the power goes out, your money is the whatever value it had is pointless now.
And that I mean that's also true of the money you have in the bank.
Yeah, well, yeah, Doug, because
You
I
know,
mean, they if the power goes out, they can't really,
right.
you're kind
The
of
the
stuck with
the
nothing.
the cool thing about crypto, though,
Mm.
which I will say, and less so crypto and more the blockchain technology, and
Blockchain,
is
yeah,
that as long as when it exists on one computer, it kind of exists on all computers. So like it's the sort of thing where like as long as there's one computer out there
mm,
in the world that still exists, where
yeah,
it's like the blockchain still exists, that
mm,
record still exists somewhere. So it's like unless there was like a complete global catastrophe that just knocked out everything, your crypto is probably going to be fine.
Mhm.
And at that point, if that happens, and you got bigger problems than what happened to your Bitcoin. It's like, everyone's going to be screwed whether they had
Yeah.
Bitcoin or not, kind of
Oh, that.
thing. So, but I think my advice to people, and I don't give financial advice, but it's sort of a general life advice in general, which I
Mm.
think you don't have to be a certified life coach to give life advice. I don't think. But with anything, whether it's your financial assets or it's other things in your life, a nice balance is good. It's like I always don't ever put all your eggs in one basket. Whether
Mhm.
it doesn't matter what it is, whether it's your work life balance, whether it's relationships with friends,
Mhm.
whether it's your finances, whatever it is. I just me personally, for me, it's always seems safest to not put everything in one spot.
Yes.
So I always, I know people in crypto who it's like everything's in crypto, and I'm like, I could never do
Yeah.
that.
It's it's like this age-old saying, diversify, diversify, diversify.
Right.
There you go.
Well, yeah, it's like, look, if you're looking for a lottery ticket, if you're looking for a lottery ticket, then that's what you're looking for. But if you're looking
Yeah.
for like long term
Oh, yeah.
financial growth or stability or something like that, then yeah, diversification. That's why I like those those target date retirement funds are like wildly diverse,
Yeah.
especially if you start them early. And it's almost like they're so diverse, they're almost guaranteed to go up at
Yeah.
a certain percentage, but they're not going to go up at like 30%. They'll go up at like 5 or 6%. So
Mhm.
it's not a lottery ticket, but it's sort of a nice sort
Pillow.
of reliable, sort of stable thing you can kind of depend on a little more.
Yeah. And the
So
cost of living itself goes up every time you
right. So
age.
right. So even
Yeah.
if you just keep up with that, I mean, it's probably a good thing. So
Yeah. Always,
yeah.
yeah. Diversifying your points of income or where you put your money at. Like I put in the stock stuff, and all that stuff, but I'm
Yeah.
not a genius at this, so that is that.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I had set up a retirement fund when I was 18. I wish I had started then. I didn't start until I started earlier than most people, but it's one of those things that nobody it's like unless your parents tell you about this stuff,
Mm,
they're not teaching any of this stuff in school. Even
mm,
back when I was in school, we did when I was in I went to a really good school. Luckily I had parents who worked hard and paid for me to go to private school. But
mm,
we did a thing when I was in like the 5th grade. It was like a stock market game, and you played with like you'd play with fake money and you'd buy stocks and stuff like that. But that was it. That was like the extent of any sort of financial training or education in school. And I went to a
mm,
good school.
mm,
It wasn't like public school even. They don't teach kids about any of this shit. They don't teach kids about insurance. They don't teach kids about banking. They don't teach kids about
mm.
stocks or anything at all to do with finance.
Yep.
What's a fucking APR? What's a CD? What's a CD? I for the longest time I didn't know what I thought they were talking
Oh,
about
I
music.
no, I
I
haven't.
didn't know
I
what
haven't.
they were talking about when I was a
I have
kid.
an answer for that one. Okay, so what a CD is this little? It's like there's a clear plastic case, and you open it up, and there's.
Dude, dude, I would have bet you $1 million when I was a kid that CDs would be around forever. I would have bet you $1 million. I was like, this is the pinnacle of technology, music technology.
It's this now.
Dude,
Digital downloads.
I'm old enough to where my parents had tape decks in their car. There weren't even any CDs.
Yep.
It was all tapes, and you'd have to the tape would get all wound up, and you'd have to take your finger and go like this in the cassette tape to
Mm-mm.
rewind it and straighten it out.
Pencil. Use a
Um,
pencil. You have to use a
yeah, I
pencil for
sound like
that.
one of those old guys now, talking about the old
I
days.
I am
That's
a
I'm heading that way.
we are all old guys at a certain point, but yeah, it's a fascination when you see the technology go from an annoying dial-up thing, and then you're like, 5G. It's 5G. What
Dude,
kind
it's
of?
so it's so funny too how angry you get at the speed of
Yeah.
technology. Like you said, a dial up. Like when I first started using the internet, forget even the dial up, which was long and slow and annoying. And like when someone would pick up the phone, it would kick you
Mm-hmm.
off the internet, right?
Yep.
I remember websites. If you had the fastest internet imaginable, and this was over the phone line at first, right?
Yeah.
The web pages would load like this.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Bit by bit. Mm-hmm.
Little bit. Oh, wait,
Yeah.
hold on. Oh, I think I see who is that? Tino Martinez? I'm at ESPN.com. Like it was brutal. And now it's like lightning speed, but like if the thing turns like this for 3
Few seconds.
seconds, I'm like, what the fuck is going on? What's going on with our internet? Is there a problem? Like, you know, and I get so
do I have
aggravated.
do I have to get up and be a parent today?
Yeah, it's like the funny there's a funny Louis C.K. bit where he's talking about there's a guy he was sitting on the airplane and there was a guy sitting next to him who was pissed off that the Wi-Fi didn't work.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, it's like fucking airplane Wi-Fi. And he's like,
Yeah.
he's like, dude, you're flying through the air on a chair right now. Would you give it a fucking second? You
Yep.
know, it's like, will you appreciate for a second that you're flying through the air in a chair right now?
Yeah.
What did that say? The
The
free
free
AOL
AOL
dial-up
dial-up
disc.
disc,
Oh
yes.
yeah, no, beep boop. Yeah, dude, when that when you wouldn't have any new mail, like
Yep.
you'd be waiting for the you've got mail thing, and when it wouldn't pop up, you'd be like, oh, you'd be so dejected. You'd be like, oh man, and
I got spam. I got spam, guys. I got spam. It's right.
and I'll tell you, that's another thing with I feel lucky that when I went through middle school, especially that instant messenger was brand new in like 7th or 8th grade for me. So I'm really glad that like it was in its infancy then, because even then when it was so new, um it was kind of like you wanted to be online all the time because you didn't want to miss out on anything. Right?
Yeah.
So, like, and that was bad. Like, I can remember going to school, and then when you came home from school, that's it. Like, there was a separation between school and home, and you got a break from school. And then what happened is that, these kids going to school after I did, when the internet was around, it's like they didn't get a break from the social aspect of school. And it's like if you're in a situation where you're getting bullied or something, man, it just never would end. It would go on and on and on. I've heard stories from younger relatives I have and stuff where it just goes on 24 hours a day. You're getting messages and comments and nasty things being said. And I'm so glad that I didn't have to, like, the worst thing was you'd set your away message, or something on the
Yeah.
AIM.
Oh yeah.
But I'm so grateful that I grew up at the time I did, and I got to experience it when I was a kid, but I still got to be a kid too,
Yeah.
going through school and coming home and being at home with my brother and my family and stuff, and not being even thinking about school,
Yeah.
or the socialness of it all, the
Yeah.
social aspect of it. So.
Yeah. But anyway, excuse me. But anyway, yeah. The as fun as it's been, I know you have to get going, so we're gonna start winding it
Yeah,
down.
man. We'll definitely gotta do one of these sometime where we can do it in the evening and I can do it for like multiple hours because
Well,
I feel like it could be epic. I
yeah,
really do.
we'll try to I'll try to invite you on for one of the pay it forward streams. See if we can't do that.
Ah, cool,
Um,
man. Cool.
but anyway, but yeah. So what we'll do is we'll promote ourselves, then we'll kind of go through who's coming on, and then all that stuff. So the floor is yours, good sir.
Sure. Okay. Well, I am Eric John. I'm a pizza artist. I make art out of real pizza and real
Mhm.
pizza toppings
Mhm.
in a real bakery here in the great state of Rhode Island,
Woo!
USA.
Mhm.
And I do a live stream. I've been live streaming since April, and it's the best time I've ever had doing pizza art in my
Mhm.
life. I love doing it so much, and the channel really has grown here on Rumble. I'm Rumble exclusive. I've dabbled with the multi-streaming,
Mhm.
but I really do love Rumble. The people at Rumble have been amazing, and the people I've met and the community that's sort of building around my show,
Mhm.
which is called Awesome Sauce, and it's at 7 p.m. Eastern time on Sunday nights.
Yep.
And sometimes I take a week off, but not. I try not to, but
Right.
sometimes I do. But yeah, come to the show, hang out. It's a really fun time, and I try to do a lot of really fun stuff for people who are viewing and
Mhm.
the chat. And one of the really fun features is that if you amass a certain amount in donations or
Mm,
rants, right now the level is $250. If you get to that level, doesn't
mm,
matter how long it takes you. It could take you a year. Doesn't matter. I keep track of everything.
mm.
But when you hit that level, you basically get to take over the live stream. I'll make whatever you want me to make, basically within reason. But like if you want me to make a portrait of you or a loved one or your logo or
Yeah,
whatever. I did the one for Silver Fox
yeah,
last week.
yep.
I've done a bunch of them. One of my viewers, her dad had passed away a couple years ago. He was a veteran, so I did
Mm,
his portrait on Veterans Day, and we
mm.
raised some money for a good cause. So it's been a blast, and it's been like a really fun way to reward people who donate.
Yeah.
That they get some sort of personalized art from me. So
Mm,
that's been really fun, and I've got a bunch of them coming up. I've got a Synth Tracks pizza I'm going to be making, who's
nice.
a Rumble streamer. Cat Dog, I'm going to be doing a Cat Dog pizza, and a
Mm,
Chaos and Roswell pizza. These are all people on Rumble who
mm.
are active on Rumble, and it's been an absolute blast. So please join us, follow all that stuff, like do
Yeah,
and you can find me on X also. I'm very
yeah.
active on the X platform.
Yes, his again, his links are down below, so you'll be able to find them easy.
Ah,
And of
thank you,
course, Nero has
Neuro.
been
Appreciate that.
putting the link in the chat as well. And
That's
of
nice.
course,
Thank you.
for my end of things, to get it going, whether you're on the Rumble side, whether you're on the YouTube side, don't if you wouldn't mind leaving a like, sharing the content, leaving a comment or follow, anything that helps with the engagement factor is much appreciated because not only does it help in being seen more, because that's what all creators want, it also helps in having other people on as guests. Like the Great Pizza John here, like UB Legend, like the Real Tommy, and so many others. So any help with the engagement factor on either Rumble or YouTube is much appreciated. And of course, if you want to see where else I'm at, there's a link down below. You can click on that. You'll see my stuff. Um, and you'll be able to contact me through that. But if you want to come on the show yourself, there is you can either leave a comment in either Rumble or YouTube, or go to that link and find me because I've already had one person do that and they found me through that. So I'm hoping that more people will take up the opportunity. But anyway, any help with the engagement, and of course, the link down below, it's much appreciated. Got that done quickly. Say that 5 times fast. But again, tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern, I will have on a lady named Shay. I've met her through the Twitter
Oh, cool
side.
shit. Okay,
Yeah,
I know
we'll have
Shay.
her. I'll
Awesome.
have her on. We'll have her on tomorrow, and so hopefully be able to see me for that. But of course, the last thing we do before we go is, of course, questions from a hat, which I bought a hat from Rumble and all that stuff. So what happens is that my guest gets 2 freebie questions, but I'm only monetized on Rumble, so YouTube side, apologies, but you gotta be able to give a little something. So if you want to see more than the 2 come out of the hat, you're gonna have to give Rumble run to it. Other than that, we're gonna start with the first one, which is my eyes are closed. I'm just feeling around.
This is
And
fun. This is a new element of the show that I did not
it's
experience last
I
time.
yeah, it was I looked up and the last time you were on was like a 9 something. I was like, oh wow,
Yeah.
that's been a while.
Well,
All right, here's a what's a movie or book that changed the way you look at everyday things?
whoa. Movie or book that
Mm,
changed the way I look at everyday things?
mm,
Man, okay, well, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is there was a movie that was made when I was in college. It
mm,
was sort of a documentary or like a pseudo documentary, and I don't remember exactly what it was called, but it was
mm.
kind of about physics,
Yeah,
and it was starring the guy, that sort of short little Asian professor guy who's like an
mm,
astrophysicist,
yeah,
was in it. I remember there was a part of it where it talked about water molecules and how they did a test on how energy affected water molecules and like emotional energy. So they had like a water bottle and they would say like really nasty things to it, and then have another water bottle that they'd be like really nice and loving to, and then
mm,
they would look at the molecules under a microscope, and like the hateful bottle, the molecules were all distorted and like weird looking, and the ones in the loving bottle looked like perfect little like snowflakes almost or something. So
oh,
that, I don't know, that definitely made me think about things differently. And then the
mm,
concept was sort of like your body's 70% water. So if you're constantly feeding negative stuff, like how is that affecting literally the molecules in your body? So
yeah,
it was kind of new agey. Again, I was in college, but I remember that made me think differently. So
yeah.
there you go. That's the first thing I thought of.
Usually that would be that was more of Apple that made me think differently, but we'll get past that point. Um, here we go. Here's an easy one. Second one, last one is: do you prefer sweet or salty snacks?
Oh man. Salty.
Are you just because you're a salty man, right?
Yeah, I'm salty. No, yeah, no, I'm not a big chocolate guy.
Oh,
If I'm gonna eat candy, I like the sugary candies like Nerds and
mm,
stuff like that.
mm.
But even like stuff like hot tamales, like I
Ooh.
like stuff like that. So Sour Patch Kids. So yeah, I definitely go like even when I'm eating like sweet stuff, it's like I like the sour stuff.
Mm.
So yeah, I would go salty.
Ooh, goodness. Yeah, I like. I'm a chocoholic, so boo you. But
You
anyway,
know what? Put salt and chocolate together. Very good.
it does. Yeah, it does work. It does work. But anyway, that is the end of the show because Mr. John has to go. Hope to see you all tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern with lovely Shay, and of course that stuff will be put up later today. Thank you all for being here. And of course, hopefully we'll have on Mr. John for a little longer because he is a cool dude. But his pizzas
Thanks, man.
always make me hungry. It's just they're made with the wrong ingredients. I don't like green peppers or mushrooms or whatever. So I'll go for a little. Have you ever done a pizza that was constricted to just a few toppings?
Not on purpose, but sometimes, some like I did a Snoopy pizza and it was just basically olives and cheese. It just depends on whatever works for the design is usually what I go for.
Someone pay this man to do a challenge where he has to only do a three toppings,
Oh,
and
well,
that's
that's coming. That's coming. So one of the things I'm trying to add to the show is like I did a mystery episode a couple of weeks ago where people had to try and guess what I was making.
yeah.
Um,
I saw that
and
one.
and and so another fun thing idea that I had was sort of spin the wheel and
Yeah,
whatever it lands on, I have to use that topping, some weird topping somehow. And so I've got some fun ideas like that
yeah.
in store for the show. So
Yeah, but it also helps in being kind of challenging yourself because if you have to make an image out of only maybe two or three toppings, you kind of are putting yourself in this space like I'm limited. I have to do this,
oh yeah,
and then just go from there. So, ooh,
definitely.
pizza. I'd more like just watch because I'm hungry. But anyway, thank you all for being here again. I hope to see you all tomorrow at 7 p.m. And of course, Pizza John, you are always welcome to come back
Thank you.
anytime. So, as always, I end the show with "One Day with You" by Pogo, and of course, if you want to see Pogo's other stuff, you can. There's a link down below. You can take it to your channel. But yeah, see y'all next time, guys. Bye.